So this morning I did something which was really a bit mad. I crisscrossed London visiting 8 different unrecognized embassies and one former unrecognized embassy location to show it to you guys in a YouTube video. So London is one of the most important capital cities in the world. So most countries, I would guess like 170, I'm guessing 150 maybe, have embassies here. But there are a good 24 or so statelets, unrecognized countries, pseudo-states, aspirational states, whatever you want to call them, some dependent territories that also have offices here as well, which they use to stay in touch with the UK government or argue their case or seek diplomatic ties or seek recognition. It varies from office to office. But I visited 9 of them this morning, and I'm really glad I did this morning because it's chucking down with rain now. Here's what happened. The last one, the one I visit last, is one I'm going to be making a video about. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Okay, I'm in Hammersmith, a part of London where you don't expect to find embassies. It's to the west of the center of the city. It's our first unrecognized embassy. The mission from Palestine. So it says here, Palestinian mission on the doorbell, but I've noticed down here on the newspaper, it says Palestinian Embassy, which is pretty cool. So this is a mission, a diplomatic mission of the Palestinian Authority, which was formed in 1994 following the 1993 Oslo Accords, which in theory at the time brought peace between the Palestinians and Israel. I'm not sure how long it's been here. It's certainly not in part of London that you expect to see a lot of embassies, but pretty cool. Okay, what have we got here? It's Gibraltar House. Yes, the British dependency of Gibraltar has its own office, its own mission here in London, just like a fully independent country, HM Government of Gibraltar. So Gibraltar is not an independent country. It became a British possession in the 1700s. It's been fiercely contested by Spain ever since. So the government of Gibraltar, which has its own parliament and its own chief minister, even though it's technically dependent on the UK, has its own diplomatic mission here in London. I guess you could call it a diplomatic mission, to represent the interests of the Gibraltarian people in the UK. So this is much more the part of London that you expect to find embassies in. There we go, Buckingham Palace. Cool. Off to the next embassy. So, right across from the Court of St. James, we have this plaque, which marks the location where the Republic of Texas maintained an embassy from between 1842 and 1845. Texas, you may not know, was an independent country for about 9 years. In 1845, Texas joined the United States, and this embassy became defunct, and supposedly the diplomats skipped out on their rent. I think it was about 160 pounds. So it's not a current embassy, but it's definitely one of the more interesting unofficial, unrecognized embassy locations in London. Don't tell JJ McCullough. But Quebec has its own embassy here in London. So you might be wondering why Quebec maintains its own embassy here in London. No other Canadian province has one. That's a good question. My guess is it goes back to the 80s and 90s when Quebec becoming an independent country seemed like a very real prospect. The current government in Quebec is run by the Coalition Avenir Quebec, or CAC, which has a different meaning here in Britain. CAC does not support independence, just autonomy, so that makes me wonder even more why these things still exist. But there we are. The Falkland Islands. Okay, the Falklands, like Gibraltar, is not an independent country, but they do have their own interests, and the Falkland Islands people have their own need to be represented here in London. So this is their office, which I believe, from what I've read, was opened in 1983 following the Falkland Island War between the UK and Argentina. I guess that really made it clear that they ought to have somebody here in London to speak for them. As well as acting as sort of diplomats, I read you can buy flights to the Falkland Islands for about £4,000 per person. The Taipei representative office in the United Kingdom. It's very hard to read on that polished brass, but that's what it said. So this is the diplomatic mission from the Republic of China, although for diplomatic reasons that can't be stated too boldly. The Republic of China, as you might know, is the government of China that is only recognized by a minority of countries. The UK is not one of them. It currently controls the island of Taiwan, so it is kind of like a regular country in many ways, even though it claims to govern all of China. But it's not recognized by the UK as a Republic of China, so they have a Taipei representative office here instead of an embassy. But it seems to act mostly like an embassy. There's a place to get visas, officials going in and out. Lots of embassies around here. This is the Embassy of Italy. It's the Kurdistan regional government. So the Kurdish people are spread all over a large region, which includes Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria. These are the Kurds of northern Iraq. After the Persian Gulf War, the US instituted a no-fly zone, which kept the Iraqi military out of northern Iraq. The Kurdish people rose up and formed their own proto-state, I guess. I'm not sure what you call it. From everything I've heard, the Kurdish regional government acts pretty much like a fully fledged independent government in lots of ways. But it's not recognized as independent by anyone. It's still part of Iraq. That's probably just for international law reasons or whatever. It has its own flag, it has its own economy, it's supposed to be a lot more stable and peaceful than the rest of Iraq. It has its own parliament, has its own language. So in lots of ways it's very separate. So it is fitting in lots of ways that the Kurdistan regional government have its own representation here in London, and they don't just do diplomatic work, they have consular services as well, where you can get a visa, where I got caught just a moment ago. Okay, so here we are in historic Bedford Square, which I'm assuming is historic. It looks historic. And up ahead, we have another unrecognized embassy. So we have the Embassy of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. Northern Cyprus was formed when the Turkish military invaded Cyprus in 1974, after they were afraid that Greek-speaking Cypriot government would unify with Greece and leave the Turkish-speaking citizens of Cyprus high and dry. So they invaded, took over the northern third of the country, and since 1974 it's been a quasi-independent state known as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. It's only recognized by Turkey, no one else, but it still has maintained independence of a sort. So for our last embassy, I'm in East London, another area where you don't expect to typically find embassies. I'm not far from the Tower of London, Tower Bridge, and City Hall, where I shot my last video. We're going to go see a very special embassy, one of my faves. It's a Somaliland diplomatic mission to the UK and the Commonwealth. I've made several videos about Somaliland. I'll link one here. Very noisy, but don't worry. I'm going to do a whole video with these guys. Hello.
Hiya.
Thank you for having me. So make sure you subscribe or look for a link to that video after this one's finished. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed my mad morning rushing across London. Leave me a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave me a comment. Let me know which office, embassy thing that you enjoyed the most. Which one surprised you the most? Or any that made you angry to see, or any that made you really pleased to see. I'd love to hear. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.